Regret is the only ghost that truly haunts a house. As the old clock ticks in the background, its relentless rhythm echoes the quiet desperation of an empty room. The door stands ajar, a cold breeze drifting in from the hallway, but the house is silent, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. He stands at the threshold, his hand on the doorknob, hesitating to enter the very space that has become both sanctuary and prison. His shoulders are stiff, as if bearing the burden of 1,000 decisions he wishes he could undo, but the world outside feels so distant now. Each step into the room feels like an intrusion, as though he doesn't belong here anymore. The walls, once full of laughter and conversation, now stand mute, as though they too are waiting for him to speak the words he's never said. There's an old photograph on the mantelpiece, the edges curling with age, depicting a family that no longer exists in the same way. He reaches out, fingers trembling, the weight of the memory pressing down on his chest. The face of his father, smiling proudly in that picture, seems to look back at him with both love and an unspoken disappointment. He never told him what he really felt, never said the things that needed to be said before it was too late. That silence, now more than a decade old, hangs between them, a gap that's only grown wider with time. His breath catches in his throat, a sharp, painful reminder that some things cannot be undone. He takes a deep breath, his hand hovering over the photograph, as if willing it to speak the words that he cannot. In that brief moment, time seems to stand still. His body trembles, the guilt and regret coursing through him like a storm, but he knows that it's not the storm he fears, it's the silence that follows. The absence of words, the space that grew between them, is the true source of his torment. The ghost of missed opportunities, of love unspoken, fills the room. The sound of his father's voice, once so familiar, now echoes faintly in his mind, a distant memory of a time when they could have said everything they needed to. But now, that chance is gone, and all that remains is the hollow silence that they both chose to ignore. He steps back, his body swaying as the weight of the moment presses down on him. His mind flashes back to the countless times he should have been there, the moments he could have made a difference, but didn't. He should have said something, anything, to bridge the gap that grew between them. The realization hits him hard, like a punch to the gut. All those years of distance, all those silent nights spent in separate worlds, have led to this point. And in this silence, he feels as if he is slowly losing himself. He can feel the tears welling up in his eyes, but he refuses to let them fall. The vulnerability is too much to bear, but he can't run from it anymore. He can't ignore the pain that has been buried for so long. The door behind him creaks as it swings open, a gust of wind carrying the scent of old memories. For the first time in years, he steps into the room, finally acknowledging the space that has been a reminder of all he lost. He stands there, not knowing what to do or say, but for the first time in years, he feels something else, a small, fragile hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of something different, the beginning of forgiveness. He sinks to his knees, his hand pressing against the floor, the weight of his body grounding him to the earth. For the first time, he allows himself to feel the grief without trying to hide it. He closes his eyes, a single tear slipping down his cheek, as he finally acknowledges the truth that has been waiting in the shadows all these years. Regret is a burden, but it is also the key to healing. The pain doesn't go away, but it can lead to something greater. He opens his eyes and looks at the photograph one last time. This time, there's no judgment, no guilt, only a quiet understanding. He's ready to let go. The room, once filled with silence, now hums with the quiet sound of acceptance. The past cannot be changed, but the future, his future, is still his to shape. The house feels colder now, the silence heavier, as he stands in the same spot, staring at the photograph. His hand, once tentative, now hovers over it again, trembling slightly, a subtle tremor he cannot ignore. The air around him feels thick, dense, as though the room itself is waiting for him to make the first move. His eyes trace the edges of the picture, the face is frozen in time, but it's not the past he fears, it's what remains unspoken. The weight of a life half-lived, the years he spent chasing things that never truly mattered, weighs heavily on him now. He can almost hear his father's voice in the back of his mind, sharp with disappointment, tinged with love, but it's a voice that has faded, eroded by time and neglect. There was so much he should have said, so much he left behind in the rush of life, in the pursuit of a future he thought would heal the past. But now, standing here, in this room that once felt like home, it's clear he never truly left. His father's absence is everywhere, woven into the very fabric of this space. His heart tightens as he closes his eyes, the images flashing before him, not as they were, but as they could have been. The moments that slipped through his fingers, the words he didn't speak. He remembers the last time he saw his father, the faintest smile, the subtle nod of recognition, and then the silence that has followed him ever since. That was the moment everything changed. Not the absence of his father, but the absence of words, of connection. He swallows hard, the lump in his throat rising again, a physical manifestation of the guilt that has followed him through every step of his life. He wanted to be more, to be something other than the son who couldn't measure up, the son who failed to return the love his father so freely gave. His chest tightens as the air feels heavier, the room smaller, closing in on him. He steps away from the photograph, but the feeling remains, lingering like a shadow he can't outrun. The past refuses to let him go, keeps pulling him back, making him confront the unacknowledged corners of his soul. His hands find the chair, and he grips it, knuckles white, bracing against the weight of his thoughts. He can almost feel the presence of his father in the chair across from him, just out of reach, just beyond the barrier of time and memory. But that's where the truth lies, in the silence between them, in the years spent apart, and in the regrets that neither of them spoke aloud. He closes his eyes again, this time letting the tears fall. It's not just the loss of his father that aches. It's the loss of everything he never said, everything he never allowed himself to feel. The words stay locked in his throat, the pain sharp, but as he sits there, letting the grief wash over him, he realizes something. It's not too late. It never is. He can't change the past, can't bring his father back, but he can heal. The healing won't come all at once, but in this moment, it begins. He lets out a shaky breath, the weight in his chest easing just slightly, just enough to make space for something new. It's the beginning of something he hasn't felt in years, hope. A quiet, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, he can be the person his father always believed he could be. The journey isn't over, but for the first time in a long time, he feels like he's taking the first step toward understanding, toward forgiving, and toward a future that isn't bound by regret. He looks at the photograph one last time, his father's face now softened with understanding, and he whispers a simple, yet powerful word, sorry. The room feels different now, the air thick with memories, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. He sits still, the chair creaking under his weight, his eyes fixed on the empty space in front of him. The silence that once felt like a comfort now feels suffocating, as though the walls are closing in, urging him to face what he's spent so long avoiding. His fingers, still trembling, clutch the fabric of his shirt, the fabric that once felt like armor, but now it's just a barrier between him and the truth he has been too afraid to confront. The truth about his father, about the years he spent running from a past he couldn't escape. He closes his eyes, and suddenly, he's no longer in the room. He's back in the kitchen, a younger version of himself, standing in front of his father, both of them silent, neither knowing how to bridge the gap that had already formed. He remembers the way. His father's hands shook as he tried to hold on to something, anything, that might keep them together. But it was too late. The words that should have been spoken, the apologies that should have been given, had never been said. And now, all that's left is the memory of a man who tried so hard to love, but never knew how to reach the son who needed him most. He opens his eyes again, and the present rushes back, hitting him like a wave. His chest tightens, and for a moment, he can't breathe. The pain, the regret, the shame, it all crashes over him, threatening to pull him under. But he doesn't let it. He won't. He has to face this, has to finally confront the truth that he's spent his entire life running from. The truth that his father's love was never the problem. The problem was that he was too afraid to let himself love, to allow himself to be vulnerable. He had spent so many years hiding behind the facade of strength, of being the one who didn't need anyone. But in doing so, he lost the most important thing of all, connection. He stands, his body shaking, Not from fear, but from the realization that he can no longer avoid what's been haunting him all these years. His father may be gone, but the lessons he left behind, the love he never gave up on, are still here, waiting to be acknowledged. He takes a step toward the window, his eyes drifting to the garden outside, now overgrown and forgotten. He can almost see his father there, in the quiet moments they shared in that very garden, talking about the future, about what it would mean to truly be a family. The words they never spoke, the moments they never had, are what haunt him now. And in that moment, he understands something he's never allowed himself to believe. It's not too late to make things right. He doesn't have to hold on to the past any longer. He doesn't have to carry the weight of regret forever. He can start anew, begin to heal. It won't be easy, and it won't happen all at once, but it can start here, in this room, with this moment. He closes his eyes, a deep breath filling his lungs, and for the first time in years, he feels something shift. The pain doesn't disappear, but it lessens, and with it comes the smallest spark of hope. Hope that he can finally break free from the chains of the past and begin the journey toward healing. He opens his eyes, looking out the window once more, and for the first time, he sees not just the overgrown garden, but the possibility of growth, of renewal. He may never fully forget the past, but he doesn't have to live in it anymore. He can move forward, step by step, and with each step, he sheds a little more of the weight he's been carrying for so long. He stands in front of the old door, the faint sound of wind whispering through the cracks, but this time, there's no hesitation. His hand reaches for the doorknob with a steady grip, no longer trembling, no longer afraid of what lies beyond. The past, once a shadow looming over him, now feels smaller, more manageable. The weight he's carried for so long isn't gone, but it doesn't define him anymore. With a deep breath, he pushes the door open, the creaking sound echoing in the silence. But this time it feels different, like a door to a new chapter of his life. As the door swings wide, he steps into the hallway, the dim light casting long shadows across the walls. The house still feels like a place of memories, but they no longer have the power to trap him. He moves down the hallway, his footsteps steady and deliberate, no longer burdened by the ghosts of regrets and missed opportunities. The weight that once seemed so unbearable now feels like a part of him, something he can carry, not because it's his burden to bear, but because it's his story to tell. Each step brings him closer to something he's been avoiding for so long, the simple act of moving forward. The hallway, once a place of discomfort, now feels open, inviting, like it's leading him to a future he's finally ready to face. He walks past the old photographs on the walls, the faces of family members frozen in time, but their gazes no longer feel accusing. The years of silence, of things left unsaid, no longer carry the same weight. They are just pictures now, memories that are his to keep, but not to be haunted by. He reaches the end of the hallway, the door to the kitchen ahead of him, and for the first time, he doesn't feel the need to turn back. The kitchen is where so many of the quiet moments took place, the meals shared, the conversations never had. It was here that his father taught him to live, and it was here that he learned to carry the weight of love, even if he didn't understand it then. He steps into the kitchen, and the familiar smells hit him, the scent of old wood, the faint trace of coffee still lingering in the air, a reminder of the mornings that passed too quickly. But the space no longer feels cold or empty. It feels like home, like the beginning of something new. He stands there for a moment, letting the stillness wash over him, feeling the weight of the past and the freedom of the present blend together. His eyes wander to the old chair by the window, where he and his father once sat, talking about everything and nothing. The chair is empty now, but it doesn't feel like a void. It feels like a place of understanding, a place where words were never necessary. He closes his eyes for a moment, taking it all in, the quiet comfort of the room, the memories that no longer hurt, the possibility of what's to come. When he opens his eyes again, the past is still there, but it no longer defines him. He has learned to carry it, to acknowledge it without letting it control his future. He takes a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs, and for the first time in a long time, he feels at peace. The weight of regret is still there, but it no longer feels like a burden. It feels like a lesson, one that he can carry forward, one that will shape him into the person he's meant to be. He steps forward, out of the kitchen and into the rest of the house, no longer trapped by the walls of his past, but moving freely toward a future that's his to create. The door behind him, once a barrier, now feels like an opening, a passage into the unknown. And as he walks forward, he knows that healing doesn't come from forgetting, but from embracing everything he's been through and choosing to move forward anyway. The house, once filled with echoes of distant memories, now feels like a place of quiet reflection, a space where time moves differently, slower, almost as if it too is waiting. He stands by the window, his fingers lightly brushing the edge of the worn wooden frame, staring out at the backyard. The garden is overgrown, the grass long and unruly, a stark contrast to the neatness he had once known. It's almost poetic, the way life has a tendency to return to its natural state, regardless of human effort. The image of his father flashes before his eyes, standing in the same spot, looking out at the world with a quiet wisdom that he never truly understood. It had always been there, the burden of expectations, but in that moment, he feels a shift, a realization that the weight was never meant to be carried alone. The realization is both humbling and freeing, as if the chains that held him in place for so long are finally beginning to loosen. He exhales deeply, the weight of years of silent suffering lifting slightly. The garden outside, untended but still alive, reflects something inside of him, something he has never allowed himself to see. The possibility of growth, even in the most unexpected places. He remembers the conversations he had with his father, the quiet ones, the ones that were never finished, the ones that left so much unsaid. His father had always been a man of few words, but it wasn't the silence that hurt. It was the understanding that lingered, the knowledge that they had never truly connected on the level they both needed. The ache of that realization sits heavy in his chest. He looks out at the garden again, the overgrown grass swaying gently in the breeze, and for the first time, he understands. It wasn't about fixing the past or making things right in the way he had imagined. It was about accepting the past for what it was and finding peace in the knowledge that sometimes things are simply beyond our control. His father's love, however quiet, was enough, and it always had been. The truth was, the greatest sacrifice his father had made wasn't in what he had given up or done, but in what he had never asked for in return. There had always been love, even in the moments when it wasn't spoken, even when it wasn't acknowledged. He had been blind to it for so long, caught up in his own desire for validation and understanding. But now, standing here, looking at the life that had passed before him, he sees it clearly. The space between them wasn't a void. It was a space for understanding, a space for silence to speak in ways words never could. His hand, once clenched tightly in anger and regret, loosens, and he feels a surge of something he hasn't felt in years, acceptance. The door behind him feels like the threshold to something new, something not defined by the mistakes of the past, but shaped by the strength to move forward. He steps away from the window, no longer needing to see the garden to know that the seeds of change have already been planted, not in the soil, but within him. The house no longer feels like a cage. It feels like a home again, a place where memories are not chains but lessons, and where peace is something earned through time, reflection, and a willingness to forgive, both himself and those he loved. He takes another deep breath, the air sweeter now, as if the very atmosphere inside the house has shifted. It's not a perfect peace, but it is a start, and that is enough. The past is still there, woven into the fabric of who he is, but it no longer holds the power to control him. He is free to walk forward, to build something new from the remnants of what was, and that freedom, however small, feels like the beginning of something profound. The house is quieter now, the kind of quiet that fills a room with possibility, like the calm after a storm. He walks through the hallways, not hurried but with purpose, the soft creak of the floorboards beneath his feet somehow comforting, reminding him of the weight of the moments he's lived and the ones still waiting for him. There's a calm in his chest, a warmth that wasn't there before, as if his body is finally catching up to the clarity of his mind. The past few days have been filled with small, yet significant steps toward healing, but today feels different. It's as though he can finally breathe without the heaviness of regret crushing his lungs, as though the air in the house has changed, more inviting, less suffocating. He stands in the doorway of his father's old study, the The room where so many conversations had taken place, but more often, the room where silence had lingered, the space where unspoken words had been left to hang in the air. The room is still as it was, the leather chair by the desk still worn with age, the papers scattered across the desk as if waiting for someone to pick them up and finish what was never started. He steps inside, his eyes scanning the familiar surroundings, the faint scent of old books and wood filling the air. It's here, in this space, that he feels the most connected to his father, but also where he feels the absence most keenly. It's where the silence between them had always been loudest. He runs his fingers over the edge of the desk, the cool surface grounding him, and in that moment, he understands. The silence wasn't just the absence of words, it was the absence of connection, the absence of willingness to be vulnerable. His father had always been strong, a pillar of quiet strength, but in his strength, he had built walls that were never meant to be climbed. He wonders if his father had ever felt the way he does now, if there had ever been moments when he, too, wished for something more, for a conversation that went deeper than surface-level pleasantries. The thought lingers, bittersweet, but not painful anymore. There is no anger, only understanding. The realization comes slowly, quietly, as if the house itself is whispering the truth he has needed to hear all along. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about embracing it, accepting it for what it was, and learning to move forward with it, not despite it. He takes a step back from the desk, the weight of the room settling into his bones. It's as though the house has opened up to him, not as a place filled with ghosts, but as a space filled with lessons. He is ready to learn, ready to forgive, not just his father, but himself. The journey that has brought him here hasn't been easy, but it has been necessary. There's a freedom in letting go, in acknowledging that some things cannot be changed, but that doesn't mean they have to define the future. He walks toward the window, his gaze drifting out over the yard, where the grass is still tall, still unruly, but somehow beautiful in its imperfection. The garden, much like him, has lived through seasons of neglect and growth, of darkness and light. It doesn't need to be perfect to be meaningful. He looks out at the horizon, the sky tinged with the soft glow of sunset, and for the first time, he feels a sense of peace. He doesn't have to have all the answers. He doesn't have to fix everything. All he has to do is keep moving forward, step by step, accepting the past, but not letting it hold him back. The future, like the garden, is waiting to be shaped. He knows now that he doesn't have to do it alone. The silence that once defined him has now become a companion, a reminder that healing isn't always loud, but it is always real. The evening light spills through the windows, casting a golden glow across the room, and for the first time in a long time, he feels the weight of the day lift from his shoulders. The room is quieter now, the hum of the world outside muffled by the soft, steady rhythm of his own breathing. His fingers rest on the edge of the worn-out chair, the one his father had sat in so many times before. He remembers the quiet hours they spent together, moments that now seem so distant, yet so vivid in his mind. The space around him, once filled with the tension of unspoken words, now feels strangely at peace. The ghosts of the past no longer haunt him. They are no longer his enemies. They are the teachers that led him here, to this moment of understanding. He thinks about how much time he spent running from the past, how much energy he put into avoiding the pain that had always been a part of him, part of his story. It wasn't just the loss of his father that hurt. It was the loss of himself, the parts of him he buried in the effort to survive. But now, standing here in this room, he can feel those pieces of himself returning. He's no longer afraid of them. They're not weaknesses. They're the foundation of his strength. His eyes linger on the family portraits. On the wall, each one frozen in time. They no longer feel like reminders of what was lost, but acknowledgments of what was lived. His father's smile, his mother's quiet gaze, they are part of him now, woven into the fabric of who he is. There's no bitterness left, no anger, only acceptance. The silence that once suffocated him now feels like a space to breathe, to reflect, to grow. He takes a deep breath, the air in the room rich with the scent of memories and possibility. It's a simple thing, the act of breathing, but it feels like a rebirth, like he's finally exhaling the weight of everything he's carried for so long. He turns his gaze back to the window, the last of the light fading from the sky, And for the first time in years, he doesn't feel alone. He feels connected, not just to his father, but to everything around him, the past, the present, and the future. He knows that the road ahead won't always be easy, but for the first time, he's ready to walk it. He's ready to face whatever comes next, not as someone broken by the past, but as someone who has learned to live with it, to accept it, and to move forward from it. He takes one last look at the room, at the photographs, the memories, the lessons that have shaped him, and with a quiet resolve, he steps forward. The door to the future, once a barrier, now stands open, and he walks through it, no longer burdened by the past, but carrying it with him, as part of who he is, ready to create a new chapter in the story of his life. He stands in the center of the room, the weight of the past slowly lifting with each breath he takes. The walls, once filled with the echoes of regret, now feel like a space he has finally come to understand, no longer intimidating but welcoming, as if they've been waiting for him to truly see them for what they are, part of the story, not the end. He moves slowly, deliberately, each step grounded, a reflection of the newfound peace settling in his chest. His father's chair, still in its place, stands as a silent reminder of what has been and what could have been, but now, it doesn't hold the same sharp sting. It's just a chair, just a part of the room, a part of the journey that has shaped him. He walks past it, not avoiding it but acknowledging it for what it is, an anchor to the past, but not the anchor that keeps him stuck. His gaze shifts to the window, where the first stars begin to appear in the evening sky, faint but steady. The same stars that his father must have looked at, wondering if there was a way to reach him, to break through the distance that had formed over the years. The realization hits him softly, like a breath of wind on a still night. It was never about reaching perfection, never about having all the answers. It was always about trying, about being present, and about learning to let go when the time comes. The guilt, the regret that once seemed so overwhelming now feels like something he can carry without letting it define him. It's not a burden anymore, but a part of the fabric that makes up who he is, a piece of the whole, but not the whole itself. He exhales, the weight in his chest lifting slightly as he turns away from the window. There's no rush, no need to hurry. He has learned that some things take time, that healing is not a single moment, but a slow, steady process that requires patience, acceptance, and above all, compassion. The room is quiet, the only sound the gentle hum of the world outside, the sound of a life continuing, of time moving forward. He walks toward the door, each step now feeling lighter, more sure. The door that once seemed so heavy now feels like the entrance to a new world, a world that is his to shape, his to live in, without the weight of the past holding him back. He opens the door, stepping into the hallway, and for the first time, there's no hesitation. He's not looking back anymore. The path ahead, though uncertain, feels full of possibility. The house, the memories, the pain, they all still exist, but they no longer have the power to control him. He is no longer the person he was when he first stepped into this space. He is someone who has learned to forgive, to let go, and to move forward. And as he walks down the hallway, the sound of his footsteps echoing softly, he knows that this is just the beginning of a new chapter, one that he can write with clarity, with understanding, and with peace. The journey may not be over, but for the first time, he feels ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that he carries the lessons of the past with him, but they will no longer dictate his future. The house feels different now, lighter in a way he can't quite explain, as if the walls themselves have exhaled the tension that once filled every corner. He moves through the rooms, not hurriedly, but with purpose, each step more deliberate than the last. The floors creak beneath him, but it's no longer the sound of something old and decaying. It's the sound of life, the sound of moving forward. The room that once felt like a prison now feels like a sanctuary, the very same space where he had spent so many days feeling lost. He stands in the center of it, taking a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs, and for the first time, he feels it, peace. The past, the weight of regret and grief, doesn't vanish in an instant, but it no longer holds him down. It's as if he's finally come to understand that peace isn't about perfection or erasing the past, but about making space for it, acknowledging its place in his life without letting it dictate his every move. He walks to the window, his fingers brushing the sill, and for a moment, he looks out at the world outside. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a reminder that even the darkest days eventually give way to light. He can feel the weight of the years, the loss, and the mistakes, but now, there's a softness to it, a tenderness that allows him to accept it all without shame. The journey has not been easy, but he knows now that it wasn't meant to be. The struggle, the pain, the moments of doubt, they were all part of something greater, something he couldn't see until now. He turns away from the window and walks towards the door that once felt like a barrier. But now, it feels like the beginning of something new, something he has longed for but never fully understood. He opens it, stepping out into the world. No longer weighed down by what was. His feet hit the ground with a surety, as though he's finally found his footing. The sky above is vast, stretching endlessly, and he knows there are still challenges ahead, still moments of uncertainty. But for the first time, he feels ready to face whatever comes next. He doesn't have all the answers, and he doesn't need to. All he needs is to keep moving, to continue learning, to allow himself the grace to make mistakes without condemning himself for them. The road ahead is unknown, but it's his road to walk, and with each step, he feels the weight of the past becoming lighter, less of a burden, more of a companion. He's no longer afraid of the unknown, no longer afraid of what the future holds. Because he's no longer trapped in the past. He's free to live, to heal, and to create something new. As he walks, the world around him seems to open up, full of possibilities he had never dared to imagine. And in that moment, he understands that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. And it starts with the simple act of stepping forward, leaving behind what can no longer be changed, and embracing what's yet to come.